Good morning, Year 9. So today for your prac, you're going to make some lamingtons. So being that our unit is all about Australia and significant Australian dishes, we obviously have used a British influenced dish like a sponge cake and we've turned it into a lamington. So today I'm going to use an electric beater. If you've got the handheld one, use that. I'm also going to do this with two of my bowls for my KitchenAid. One will be to make the batter and one will be to whip the whites. Make sure they're clean and dry. So just give them a dust if you're unsure. Dust out, there's been in the cupboard for a while. I've got also a paddle or a whisk. Now I'm going to use the paddle for the eggs yolk and I'm going to use the whisk for the egg white. So they have two different purposes. So if you have that, use that. If you've just got the two beaters, because you're using the handheld one, that's fine. Now first thing you need to do is separate your eggs. So into my bowl, I'm going to put my whites in one and my yolks in the other. If you're not confident at doing this, and you think you might make a mess and you might put the yolk in with the white, which is a complete no-no, I can't have that, because then your meringue's not going to work. Do it in two separate small bowls just for peace of mind. So, cracking your egg. I'm going to put my white in this little bowl here. I'm going to put my egg straight into this one because I know I need that. And then every time I'm going to put my white back into there. Just in case I have an off egg or I make a mess and I split the yolk accidentally. So as you can see, just trying to get as much white as I can. Yolk in one, white in the other. Now for your recipe, it says 6. I'm just going to do 1.5 of the recipe so I can show you 2 ways of doing these lamingtons. So I'll explain all that later. So this is why it might look like I'm adding extra compared to what your recipe says. I just would like to show you how you can modify things. Oh, see how close that was. Check if you do that, check that there's no yolk in there, because obviously then you can't use that one, but I got lucky there. I also took these eggs out of the fridge this morning. So they've been out for a bit. Sponge cakes, you like to use room temperature eggs. So if you can leave them out and make sure they're not ice cold, it's better for your cake, your sponge. Now for today's recipe, I've pre-weighed everything out before I started, and I'd like you to do that too. It will make your life easier while you're doing this. So I've already got my sugar weighed, I've got my 2 flours weighed out, and I've got to sift those before I put it in. I've also got my icing sugar and stuff weighed out ready for later. So we're going to put this aside, and you're going to put your yolks in your mixer, and you're going to beat them with half the sugar. The other half is going in your meringue later. So using your paddle, you are going to whip this until it's creamy and double. If you don't have a paddle, remember, just use your whisks. So I'm going to start it on 1, and then I'm going to mix it all the way to the highest speed. Pause it for a sec. While I'm mixing this, I'm going to sift my 2 flours. So you can be doing something, you don't need to just stand there. go straight in the sink. Alright, and the next thing you can do while you're waiting, while this keeps whipping, obviously give it a check. See if it needs, like if you're needing going around a bit more. You're going to keep whipping it until it's a lot paler. While this happens, I've done my flour. Now I'm going to line my 2 baking trays. You're only doing 1, remember? Alright, so I whipped this for a couple of minutes. You can see it's changed in colour, it's light and creamy colour. Now I'm going to add my sifted flour. You can see while I was doing that, I lined my tray. I sprayed it with some spray oil first, then put the paper down. If you're still a bit concerned, give it another spray. It just depends on what quality paper you use. Alright, so you're going to add your flours. Obviously I'm going to start this on low and you're just mixing it in. Now you can see this is quite a dry mix, so the recipe says to add 2 tablespoons of boiling water. Now this is not boiling, I did a cup of tea earlier, so it's quite hot still though. Now I'm just going to turn it up and mix it all in. Okay, so there is that part of the mix done. You're using your spatula, you can scrape that down. Using your other bowl. Now if you've only got 1 bowl, obviously you're doing this in batches and stages. And you have to give your beaters a clean down if you're using a handheld electric beater. Okay, when you're doing this part, we are going to beat the whites until they're quite fluffy, and then we're slowly going to add the sugar towards the end. Don't add the sugar just yet, otherwise your meringue's not going to be really big, and you want it big. Think back when we made the pavlovas, how we did that. Alright, you can see how big and fluffy that is now. Now we're going to start slowly adding the sugar. I'm just going to shake a bit in at a time. You'll see it change really glossy. And obviously, if I just left it like this, the eggs will start weeping shortly and there'll be a pool of like egg white down the bottom. So slowly turning into a meringue. That's why you're leaving half the sugar. So I'm just going to do it on a half speed, not 10 to add the sugar. Sped it up. And to that sugar in. Now I'm just going to give it a little stir around, make sure all of it has been whipped. You can see it's quite a meringue mix. If you remember what I did when we did the meringues, and I said lift the bowl over your head, and obviously if it doesn't fall out, your meringue's perfect. If it does fall out, your meringue wasn't ready. Maybe not do that at home. Alright, so I've got a nice stiff peak. I'm just going to take the whisk off. So stiff peak means, see that peak just there, how it comes up and it holds its shape. It's not going to fall apart. So just like your pavs, this is what you're going to do now. So now we're going to add half of this white and just mix it in. Don't worry about the whipping out the air, because you're going to fold in the second half and be gentle with it. So normally in a sponge cake, someone will say to you, be really careful you don't knock out the air because of all this work you've just done with the whipping the whites. So I'm just going to put half of it in. And you see I'm using 2 different spatulas as well. Now here you are just mixing it. Don't stress about getting all that air out. Just mixing it all in. And you can see the mixture's gotten a bit wetter now. All right, so now this is quite easy now to fold in the rest. Now there's nothing left in that bowl. Now this way you're going to have to be gentle and you're folding it. So you're giving it a lift up and letting it fall down. Lift up, letting it fall. We don't want to take the air out of these whites. So I'm just going around the outside of my bowl and then going back through the middle. I don't want to be rough with it. Try and be as gentle as you can. But we have to mix in the white without taking the air off the white. So I've got little bits of meringue still there, which I can see, but as I drop that into the tin, I'm assuming it's going to, mix through. So, see that big pile of meringue just there. Now in your line tray. Now, as I was saying, I'm doing this 2 ways. I'm going to do your normal lamington, and then I'm going to do a lamington roll, just to show you how you can change a recipe and how obviously different cultures have influenced these changes. So this is a sliced tin. If you don't have a sliced tin, just use a normal cake tin. It doesn't matter if it's not rectangle. Try and be gentle when you mix, like pushing it into the tin. We again don't want to take that air out. And see how I said I'm not that stressed about that little bit of white, because as I'm moving it around in here, it's going to be spread out. All right. Oops. See, I'm even messy at home. Alright. Spread that down. Now you're going to put this in your oven. Hopefully you've preheated it to 180. After halfway of cooking, can you give your tin a spin? Because obviously a fan forced oven isn't always even in its cooking, and you'll see that the color's not the same. So what I'm going to get you to do now, put it in there, check it after 10 minutes, and then you give it a spin halfway through. Now if you've got a flat tin like mine, it might be done in 10 to 15. If yours is a deeper tin, check it after about 20. Alright, year 9. So my sponge has just come out. Wait till you start seeing it come from the edge, you'll know it's going to be done. Now for the Lamington scroll, I'm going to show you what to do. So put a clean tea towel down and a piece of baking paper. And then I'm going to put that on top. Now remember, this is warm, so be careful. So there's my sponge. You're going to leave it for your Lamingtons just on a wire rack until it's cold, and then you'll roll it, then you'll cut it up. For a Lamington scroll, you are going to have to put some, like you're making sushi, roll the paper. Tea towel's there just to help you do the rolling, like a piece of the bamboo when we do sushi. Now you have to roll these while they're warm and then just leave them. I'm just going to put there, give it a roll. Now if you roll it while it's cold, it will just crack. Now I'm just going to leave it in my tea towel like that until it's completely cool. And then I'll unroll it and put jam and cream in it. The other one I'm just going to put on the tray here. Now if you're unsure, you can always use a toothpick or a skewer, put it in the middle. If it comes out clean, you're good. If it's still a bit wet, maybe put it back in. Now it will drop a bit. See how high it is when you come back later? It will be a bit flatter. But you can see here on the side of my tin, I don't know if you can, how it's come away from the side. That's when you know a sponge is done. Let it cool before you do the next step. So you're going to add your melted butter. Just adding it to my water. And now I'm adding all of this to this. And you're going to mix it around. Now the recipe says not to make it too watery. I find that halfway through coating all the Lamingtons or the sponge, it starts to get thick. If you find your icing here gets too thick, you obviously are going to have to add a little bit more boiling water. And you've got to mix this now until you get rid of all those lumps. So you see I'm squishing on the side of the bowl. All those little pockets of cocoa or icing sugar. Try not to do this part too early in advance. So when my cake was in the oven, I did all my washing up and I've let it cool. And now I'm obviously making the icing. Okay. You have on your recipe optional extra is you can whip some cream. So I'm going to do this now. Now if you wanted to put cream in the middle of yours, you can. I don't think I've made mine high enough, like fat enough to do that. So I'm just going to put some cream inside this Lamington, the log. So again with my big bowl and my whisk, I'm going to put some cream in there. Up to to you how much you want to use. I suggest and recommend you add a drop of vanilla to it and a little bit of ice and sugar. And then you're going to whip this up with your electric beater until it's all like whipped up cream. Alright, your cream is all whipped, ready to go. Now you can have that next to your Lamingtons or in the middle, or if you choose to push yourself and make the log, you're going to put it in the middle. Alright. Alright, your next step is to ice your Lamingtons. Now you're going to need 2 spoons, just like if you were icing anything else, and you'll need another bowl next to it for your coconut. So what you're going to do, I'll put that away. You're going to drop in one of your sponges. Remember they're cold or room temperature. Using your 2 spoons, you're going to toss it, flip it upside down. Once it's coated, put it on your spoon to let it drip for a second. Well, I'm having a fail. And then you're going to put it in your coconut. So you can see I didn't use my hands for any of that. Now I'm just going to toss the coconut over it with my hands. Make sure it's all coated. And then repeat. Alright, so I'm going to now do my Lamington log. I'm going to put some jam in a bowl, and I just microwaved it for 30 seconds just so it's easier for me to spread over the cake and that way it doesn't fall apart or anything. I also cut up a couple of strawberries that I'm going to drop on there, and then I'll show you the whole process. You're going to be gently unrolling it. Try not to let it crack. See, I've got a little crack here, so just be careful when you do this bit. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread it with some jam. And get in all those yummy cracks. So I just washed and sliced some strawberries. So they're just thinly sliced. Alright. So now I'm going to get some of that cream and put that in the middle. I just split it. Now you're just going to roll it back up. Be gentle. And that you don't break it. Maybe I've added too much cream and look what happens. Splits. So now I'm going to let that cool in the fridge and then I'm going to ice it. Alright, so I put my sponge in the fridge, that one, the log one, just while I did the dishes. So it is cold, like a lot cooler. So what you're going to do now is you are going to use your leftover chocolate mix. Now you can do it two ways. You can pour it over, you can use a brush, and then you're going to roll it in your leftover coconut. Or you can sprinkle the coconut over. Now you've got your chocolate all over it. That way. Just going to roll it off the paper and then it'll sit in the container hopefully. And so I'm doing it all in a Tupperware so I don't have big mess everywhere and try to control my mess. So put it in something that's going to catch it. All that coconut. Just gotta sit back down on its crack. Alright, now I'm going to put that in the fridge to set the rest of the way and then cut it up. Enjoy everyone.